Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of Another Pass, where we talk about movies and all the struggles that go into making them. If you like it, check out the whole podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
The apes that we actually are with are very much the best examples of that society. We're going backwards, so we've spent some time with Caesar, but this is actually our first time looking at Roddy McDowall as Cornelius, and our first time getting Kim Hunter as Zira in our series here, but it's obviously the tail end for their appearances in the franchise. And they make this movie.
Yes. This is sort of, the way I thought about it is Planet of the Apes is kind of Sodom and Gomorrah. If you're going to destroy the world, like, who from that planet should live to go on? Who should be spared? And it's like, yeah, Cornelius and Zira are definitely your examples of the two that should go on, the two that are worthy. You can drop a stone on the rest of them.
Yeah. Cornelius especially is very sympathetic as an archaeologist. Like, he was intellectually inquisitive without it being the ickier side of the sciences of the future timeline. Whereas like Zira being someone who's like okay with like dissecting creatures and so forth is like, a little more questionable. And I think this movie does a lot to sort of, she feels so alone and in need of companionship in this time, even though she has Cornelius. Like, she doesn't like lying and she doesn't want, it's her having come to realize that humanity has value, like, and being like kind of ashamed of it. Like, she might be like a little casual when she references that she dissected plenty, but like I think she has learned her lesson and is going through this arc in this movie of like wanting to find a place here and then being rejected by humanity once once she becomes dangerous, once she becomes the mother of, the ape messiah.
Yeah. In that way, she also ends up by the end, like, being embittered by it. There's the moment where she goes, "It smells like humans." And Cornelius is like, "You really don't like them." And she's like, "We've been here for not that long and we've met so many people and I only trust 3. And I think it's very interesting. Like, there's an entire arc for her, right? She comes here, she's just very matter of fact, feel bad about this. And by the end of it, she's like, I don't know. I don't know if I feel totally bad about it.
Yeah, when someone imprisons you and then tries to hunt you down and kill your baby,
And sterilize you, yeah.
It might sway your opinion a bit.
Yeah.
But I still think there's the ambiguity whether what Zira did was wrong. I mean, these were considered to be lesser creatures that were being sacrificed to save the lives of, apes, to them who had souls and had purpose. And, we've killed countless animals in the name of science to save human lives. We've shot plenty of animals into space. All of that is based on this idea that the human life is more valuable than anyone else. And I'd say in the ape society, it's the same thing. The ape life is more valuable than anyone else. I think even from the beginning, she doesn't like the humans beaten and stuff, but she has no problem with them dying for a good cause, for the gain of knowledge and science.
Yeah. I think she comes off as very sympathetic in that regard. Like, while the Planet of the Apes franchise, generally speaking, doesn't have heroes, like, they'll have protagonists, but everyone has like some kind of moral ambiguity, some kind of flaws. Cornelius kills a guy in this movie. Like, sure, it's an accident, but it kills a guy. Like, and it's not a huge trigger for him. Obviously, he's stressed. Obviously, he is very, like, there's a lot of things going on, but it's, a fairly innocuous comment, and he like shoves this guy into the wall and crushes his skull. Like, yeah, again, like, not on purpose, but like every character, even the most sympathetic ones, have moments of like kind of darkness to them, or like areas where they have failed. Taylor is not a good guy in the first movie. He's just trapped and alone, and we sympathize with him. But I love these characters. Like, we haven't really talked about Kim Hunter yet. This is our first time seeing her in one of these movies since we're going in the reverse order. But she is fantastic. Like, her performance as Zira is so great. Like, her like doing all the different tests and like finally deciding to speak and having that be like such a big moment there. Great stuff. I think she's incredible. Like, I think that her performance really sells it. And then her relationship with Cornelius, played by Roddy McDowall, it now actually playing his original part, as opposed to his own son. Like, they're so charming. You understand why people love them. Like, in the court scene. Like, it's in the trailer, it's in it all over, but like everything that talks about this movie is like, can he speak also? Only when she lets me. Great fucking line.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a very funny line. But
the
you look
media
at
is
that,
putty in their hands at that point.
yeah, but you look at it compared to the first one, and when Taylor speaks, it blows all the apes' minds. I don't know if it blows the humans' minds quite as much as I think it would. And immediately, when going back to the apes, they're immediately incredulous that Taylor's actually speaking. It's a trick. It's either ventriloquism or you've simply taught him to ape sounds, but he absolutely can't think. But the humans don't have any kind of doubt like that. They're like, oh, they're talking. They can even testify for themselves in that court, whereas Taylor was not allowed to testify for himself in court in the original movie.
Well, I mean, kind of, because they are primed. Like the congressional board that's witnessing it, it's like, oh no, they have acquired the power of speech. So it's not out of the blue. It's not like Taylor's situation where he's like running around and like says it in front of like just the public unprompted.
Yeah, it's like the scientist has already uncovered it, and so although he admits it right there in front of the general counsel, because I think they have a human vouching. It's like that kind of thing, like a human's like, no, it's really them.
Well, and then they also try to be like, oh, it's just a parroting kind of situation. And actually, chimpanzees have been taught to make sounds that are like a parrot. It's just they can't make a huge range, and as far as we can tell, they don't understand what they're actually saying when we've done it.
But the skepticism of the apes is much higher than the skepticism of the humans.
But also then the ones who they first speak to, when Zira says, I loathe bananas, like those are this movie's equivalent of Cornelius and Zira. So
yes,
they in the first movie, while Taylor wasn't able to speak physically because he had injured his throat, like they were receptive to Taylor writing notes pretty quickly. So like I think we end up with these sort of like parallel scenarios. And like I said, I think this movie is trying to be like, at first humanity seems way more accepting of them, only to turn around and basically do the same thing. It's just they have this veneer. It's like the Pride Month discussion with like businesses, where it's just like all of a sudden there's rainbow flags and so forth, but it's at the same time, but it's like also capitalism is crushing you kind of moments, where it's like the hypocrisy of like trying to appear so like congenial and like forward thinking and progressive, but at the same time being like, oh, but we want to crush the unions and like have our business interests. Like I think this movie is trying to like condemn humanity and being like, oh, if you didn't realize that you're being on display in the first movie, we're gonna pull that back, and it's just gonna be fully on. Here's human society as good as you think it is, and they're still shitty.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, I just want to say, just because we talked about humans just loving how the apes were embracing and becoming sideshows. I loved the getting close scene. I loved the classic trying things on, and
yeah.
I love that. That's so fucking weird, and I appreciate that that's in this movie. Shout out to that.
That's the tone of this movie. That's why they can't dissect them, and it's not darker. It's a comedy.
Right.
This is distinctly a comedy until it has sort of a bleak ending, but it's absolutely supposed to be a funny movie.
Yeah, and they are so fucking charming. Like Cornelius,
and they've got great one-liners.
Like constantly. Yeah, he's great at that. Like when, like, Dr. Cornelius, what do you think of our women? Very human. Like, yeah, great lines. Like, and it shows his.
What's your favorite fruit?
Zero's.
Grape.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that also. Noting that like we never really saw them having like drinks in the future. Like it was this kind of, like you said, theocratic state, so it kind of feels puritanical in a lot of regards. So it would make sense that Zaius, or whatever sort of orangutan authority that kind of was trying to keep apes from finding out too much about vice and so forth, like would have restricted that access to those kind of things. So it makes sense that Zero wouldn't have had alcohol up until that point.
Mm-hmm. But I guess it's the 70s, but they should know enough not to give alcohol to a pregnant ape.
Oh yeah. Oh god, that whole scene right there is fucked up, because he knows she's pregnant. It's not even like he's not aware of it, and he knows more about, like, it's understandable that she would not know that wine is bad for you when you are pregnant. It is, but Hasline knows, and he's definitely doing that just to put her in a situation where she can rat stuff out, and because he's kind of okay if the baby has complications as a result of being fed alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says it's good for the baby, I think, after he gives the door.
He does. Like, he's totally encouraging it. Yes, babies love this. It's good for the baby. What a jerk. It's perfect. He's perfect.
Yeah. Babies like red wine over white. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, grape juice plus
They
baby.
don't like the sparkling, the bubbles.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Give them gas.
Yeah. They like bubble baths, not bubble drinks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That should be on a plaque somewhere for new mothers.
But yeah, I mean, like, talking about the first half of the movie, it's so light and charming in general. There's also their friend is just murdered in front of them early in the movie, so there is that. But like the whole sequence of them just as celebrities out in our culture is a great time to explore how an outsider would look at modern America, and with all the resources to see the best of it. Like, they're being treated as celebrities, so they're staying at luxury hotels and like being taken to shop at these things, and clearly have a pretty big budget. Like, no one ever gives a number, but it seems that they're like, they can just pick up suits and it's fine. They can pick up these outfits that, like, god damn it, look like pictures of my grandmother. like from that era. Like, I think that's also a thing when I'm looking at this movie where it's like, yeah, this is like, it's set in 1973, it's from 1970. The outfits and whatnot, or 71, pardon me. The outfits just are such of that era.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Speaking of the friend of Dr. Milo, is this a point where I can talk about things that I would change?
Yeah,
if
well,
I could?
we're kvetching at this point, and we'll take a break in a second and actually talk about what we would do differently.
Okay, sure.
But
I'm going to sit on that. But yeah, Dr. Milo, I mean, just to discuss him, I mean, he's the one that gets there, and yeah, he gets strangled by a gorilla, and I guess that's the point of establishing. I mean, we already know, but I guess it's to establish to the apes that apes in that time are still savage. Because otherwise they would not have seen them. Maybe they wouldn't have known. That's the only reason I can really think of having a gorilla strangle him to death.
yeah, this movie carries over the racism that the first movie has of the different ape groups like disliking each other. Like, immediately they're like, oh, they'll have a friend. There's a gorilla, and they all like get mad initially, and like every time they bring up gorillas, they're always really mad, which is,
Yeah. Don't
the
call
thing
them a
from this
monkey either.
Yeah, that's definitely the racial parallel right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is impossible to divorce from the Planet of the Apes movies. Like, they are trying to have commentaries about it all.
Well, that's the point. Without the commentary, they're certainly not as good.
Remember, if you like that clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.